Hey friends. Today was one of those days where I found myself, I spent most of the day with my daughter because it's spring break. We're about to take off and take a lovely road trip to Tucson, Arizona, have a couple days to just hang out. Um, but Katie had to do some work today, so I was on duty. And I had, kind of a lovely time with Annalise. Um, and a bit of a recapitulation of something that I feel like I've been through with her a handful of times now, which is as we were working on music, it was like she was testing me to see how serious I am about the work. And I have struggled with this because it's it's hard for me to tell sometimes what the what the impulse is for a certain kind of, whether it's resistance from her or um, it's almost as though, it kind of boils down to what I said a moment ago, but it's almost as though there's like a test being run to see if I'm for real. And what's interesting about this is that I would never I would never have known how to identify this. I would have never anticipated this or thought this or felt that this was the thing. But I've had this happen over and over again, that a boundary will be tested to see if it's a real boundary. And only after I have truly affirmed that a boundary is a boundary does my daughter go into a place of kind of peace and security. And I'm finding the same thing true. I mean, in a way, this is saying the same thing, but I'm finding the same thing true of expectations. If I have an expectation of her, which is a form of boundary, right? That's why I said you can kind of think of this as the same thing, although expectations and boundaries usually we use those words to define slightly different things. But at the end of the day, an expectation is a form of boundary. It's a form of, here's a set of parameters or a set of expectations that I hold. Well, I felt like that is what was being tested today. My expectations of her. Do you really have these expectations of me? Do you really think I can meet them? Seems to be the subtext of these tests. Do you actually believe I can meet these expectations? And there's part of me as a parent, and I think this is kind of it's a current kind of zeitgeist issue. There's part of me that wants to say, you're okay whether or not you meet these expectations. It's okay. You're okay. I love you whether or not you meet these expectations. And there is a level and that is a very important thing to communicate. It is incredibly important to communicate to a child that they are loved no matter what. And that doesn't mean that the expectations have to give way in order for us to communicate that we love the child. They don't have to give way. And in fact, I would argue, and I sort of keep, this is the kind of counterintuitive to me lesson that I keep learning. When I actually kind of affirm and defend those expectations, what comes out, what comes through, is a deeper sense of trust. And that is not how I would necessarily expect it to work. But, and it's also weird, I have to say, I'm flying very much on instinct here as I navigate moments where I feel like my expectations are being tested. And I have to kind of, in the real-time moment, decide, like, okay, what am I going to do here? What am I saying? What am I trying to communicate? How do I want to communicate this? I do my best to get my own emotion out of it, because anything that is animated by my own emotional responses is likely to be kind of tainted. It's likely to be not, it's likely to muddy my intent. I don't want my emotions to muddy my deeper intent. And then I have to kind of say, okay, these are my expectations. This is what I expect. And today there was some moments. There's kind of a moment towards the end of our practice time when I had to be like, this is what I expect of you. You can do this. I know you can do this. I expect this of you. And it was this weird thing. It was like breaking through a barrier. On the other side of that barrier was a kind of peaceful, secure, focused child who completed the work, who completed the tasks that I had set, and who waltzed right out the end of the practice session and wanted to immediately play with me and have special time with me. And of course, my worry as I'm pushing these, as I'm kind of like in the heat of the moment, my worry is, well, I'm gonna push her away, right? I'm gonna actually push her away from me. I'm gonna make her not. I'm gonna push too hard. But turns out sometimes that pushing is not like pushing a child through something they don't want to do. It's simply holding up a level of expectation that the child is incapable of holding up for themselves. And that's why they have a parent, for crying out loud, right? That's why they have someone that they were born to, who is there to raise them. That's why we need those figures. And I keep coming back to this, and I guess I'm saying it in kind of a new way, but my willingness to hold my own expectations, because first of all, I feel like I am forming my expectations in dialogue with my daughter. I don't feel like I have these expectations and I am going to impose them, and this is what you will meet, and then you will satisfy me in the way that I want you to live your life. Like, that's not actually what I'm doing. That would, of course, be toxic and probably, traumatic for all involved. But because I feel like I'm doing my best anyway to have my own instincts, feel my own impulses, have my own expectations, my own understanding of what level of focus my child is capable of, and then listening to her, taking it off of her, listening to what she says to me, not just in the moment of these kinds of interactions, but all the time, getting a picture of getting the picture she's painting, and infusing my own understanding with all that. It feels like I'm not just holding up my expectations, I'm holding hers. I'm holding hers for her because she's a 5-year-old and she can't do all of that yet on her own. She needs somebody to hold those expectations for her, to have those expectations of her for her that she actually has of herself. And whenever I do that, whenever I follow through, my experience is that I have built trust. We have built trust. And again, that's not necessarily what you would think instinctively. Like, that might not be the first thing you would suspect would be the case. But that's my experience. Again and again and again. Maintaining or holding certain expectations builds trust. And man, with as powerful a being as I've got for a kid, it can be intense. But it's totally worth it. It's totally worth every moment of intensity. There's no part of me that wants to shy away from it, or that wants to get out of it, or that wishes it was just easier. No part of me wishes that. It's the work of building consciousness. It's like my own consciousness, my own awareness of myself, my own awareness of what it means to be interacting with another human being, what it means to have expectations of myself, what it means to meet expectations, what it means to provide that service to. It's like there's so much I'm learning, and there's so much she's learning. It's like it's all this incredible cauldron of conscious growth, a bubbling cauldron of consciousness. I've been reading a story about witches. We're reading a bedtime story about witches, so maybe that's where the bubbling cauldron imagery is coming from. But it's remarkable. It's remarkable how that process builds trust, and you got to see it through to the end. You got to stick it out. If I stopped in the middle and threw up my hands, or just decided, oh, she can't really get there today, or whatever, just found some way of letting her off the hook, which would really be a way of letting me off the hook, you don't build trust. It's not terminal if that happens every once in a while, but that's not what we want to have happen most of the time. Most of the time we want to have that integrity come in, because we build trust. We build something together. I know she can handle something, and then she knows she can handle it after I know she can handle it. After I know she can handle it and I defend that belief and affirm that belief by not letting up, then she gets to believe she can handle it. I don't know how else that's supposed to work. That sounds like parenting to me. It's intense. But it's amazing. Anyway, that's where I am today. We're about to go on spring break. Hopefully there'll be lots of poolside fun games. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. See you soon.